Cool.
on copyright music. Share it out.
I'm so shady, just a little bitty. I'm so stupid, you're fucking like
groundbreaking series is streaming Wednesday, exclusively on Disney+.
You have removed your helmet. You are a Mandalorian no more.
I'm going to Mandalore.
There's nothing left.
All right, kid, you ready for an adventure?
May the Force be with you!
Don't miss
This is the way.
the epic return of The Mandalorian Season 3, streaming Wednesday, only on Disney+.
When you go on holiday, there is no finer achievement than doing absolutely nothing. Nothing on the beach, nothing by the pool, walking kind of nowhere, and chatting about nothing. As an Expedia member, you can save up to 30% when you add a hotel to your flight. So you can have a bit more money to go out there with great ambition to do absolutely nothing. Expedia, made to travel.
You can't blame me, I gave my soul, and all that's left was swallowed. Kept to myself, thinking of how crazy everything went south and burned. We turn into this, we cannot dismiss all the things that made us who we were. You can't blame me, I gave my soul, and all that's left was swallowed whole. You can't take me, I'll stand and fall for you and no one else. I need to know how we could go so far just to find there's no return. I break through the tides until they divide for you just to prove I won't let go. You can't blame me, I gave my soul, and all that's left was swallowed whole. You can't take me, I'll stand and fall for you and no one else. Don't keep dragging me along. I'll be here until you're gone. Don't keep hoping that you're wrong. I'll be here until you're gone. You can't blame me, I gave my soul, and all that's left was swallowed whole. You can't take me, I'll stand and fall for you and no one else. Don't keep dragging me along. Where hasn't I gone? It stood within each of our minds. Your sudden silence, 6 songs into the night. All our hearts on the break. Something only time can change. We'll carry on like we always do. Show me the way. I will meet you again. I make a promise to myself.
What is going on? What is going on? I am Trans Gamer, and this is the podcast. We are back, guys. 100% we are back. Hopefully the next couple of guests does not cancel, but we're alright. We're alright. Tonight, the doctor's in. Dr. Cindy Little with Waco Ghost. And she is an actual doctor. actual doctor. But anyway, I met this wonderful person there at RogueCon. She was doing a podcast, and I like the paranormal stuff too. I was like, well, I haven't stopped long enough to do a paranormal podcast, so I told her, hey, can we exchange cards? She gave me a card. I gave her one of my old cards. That had the link tree that I don't use no more. But I marked it out and I put pillar on there. So, I mean, it was one of those things where hopefully it worked. And it worked. So, anyway, we are going to bring her on, and we are going to start this podcast. Yeah. Bring her on. How are you doing, Dr. Little?
I'm good.
I'm
How are
doing
you?
just fine. Trying to minimize some have. So, let's before we get into everything, can you explain a little bit about yourself?
Okay. Yes, I'm Cindy Little, and I am a parapsychologist, and I am also a paranormal researcher and business owner of Waco Ghosts. And I've been doing this for the past 16 years, and I've always had an interest in the paranormal ever since I was little. I was that geeky little kid that spent her lunch hour in the library reading real ghost stories, and came across a story by Jeff the Talking Mongoose in the UK, and I was hooked. And then fast forward to when the Ghostbusters movies came out and the TV shows came out, I thought, oh, hey, there might be a little bit of science behind this. And that fascinated me even more. And so kind of the rest is history. It's something that I just love.
Nice. Like for me, I had a paranormal experience whenever I was like really young. I want to say 3, maybe 4, and I saw
Hmm.
your ghosts, angels. You can call them whatever you want. I saw them above my parents, uh, basically looking down on, and then both of them came up and gave me that, uh, like a E types. So that is one of those things where my paranormal, what do you want to call it? Yeah, the starting for the paranormal. There we go. Uh,
There we go.
uh, gets its start from. So that was like one of my very first ones. Then later on, it's like whenever you did something bad in the house, and this where the tree fell over into the house.
Oh,
Literally, you could go into the room where they took you to go get punished, and no matter whether the belts, uh, uh, whether the door was closed, whether the door was wide open, just you could be just standing there, that belt just like that. I'm like, my God,
wow. Cool.
somebody's fixing to get ghost whooped from the other side. So for me, it's always been that, and I've been able, this is one of those things. I used to live over in Mahia, Texas, looking at apartments up there, and literally, I knew what was on the other side of the apartment. I could go up in there, up into the apartment. Like, no, bad juju. Right back on down to the truck. On the other side of it was a um it was what is that where they take them and bomb them, uh mortuary
Oh, a
mortuary
mortuary?
church,
Yeah,
had the
yeah.
whole line of limos and uh stuff like that. I was like, yeah,
Oh,
a
funeral
funeral.
home.
There we
Yeah,
go. I
funeral
am
home.
so brain dead today.
Yeah.
It must have been that extra uh extra work that I was doing yesterday. So anyways, anyways, I have 7 of ghost haunted Texas, and I want to get your opinion on this. And I have opinion on a couple of them because I've actually stayed
Okay.
in them. Uh,
Hmm.
one is not because I don't hardly go to the Austin area whatsoever. One is not Driscoll Hotel, Austin. Do you know
Okay.
anything about that, or have you had experiences, or what?
Not really. I mean, I've never been to the Driscoll, but I've known plenty of people who have stayed at the Driscoll and have had paranormal experiences. It's one of the more popular haunted hotels in Texas,
What
definitely.
was some of their experience like? Was it more like scratching what?
It wasn't anything malicious or malevolent that I remember. It was, bad feelings, kind of phantom footsteps. If I remember right, somebody talked about seeing an apparition. So, nothing terrible.
Oh, okay. That's awesome. Uh the thing that was I got I got all of this from a website. But it does make some point.
Mhm.
Driscoll is uh there isn't just one Driscoll hotel haunting. Many stories circulate the lavish hall of Austin. Hotel. One tale claims a grand staircase at the Driscoll haunted by a young girl that met her fate in 1987, chasing a boy fall over the edge. That's one. I mean, no matter what, I've done wrestling, football, but anything that involves tumbling. I mean, it's just that's one
Mhm.
of those things that I that even hurts my neck. Because really,
Yeah. Yeah.
another alleges
Mhm.
the Driscoll Hotel, room 525, is the site where two distressed brides took their own lives on their honeymoon. Exactly 20. Now, I've seen those type of occurrences. Not gonna call them fates, anything occurrences in several different other places. One of them being in Chicago, and another one being in like say Nashville. At a
Mhm.
and all of them happen to be in hotels. Uh, there thing. Hey, whenever you see something like that, how is it? Guess what I'm trying to say is how does it uh come to you in your mind and stuff like that? How did because to me, I don't think that they're dates. I think it's like out of the blue.
Yeah, I agree. I approach the paranormal quite a bit more scientifically. I do investigations with people that approach it more metaphysically. But I look at situations like that and I just see it as coincidental. And something else you might want to keep in mind and have your listeners keep in mind in going through these ghost lists online, like the most haunted, some of the stories are just urban legend. They aren't even there's no history to back them up. So you have to really question the stories in the first place. I'm not saying that's the case with the Driscoll, but I always take these stories that are listed on the internet with just a little grain of salt because they may or may not be
Now,
true.
with this next one, Hotel Galvez. I used to stay in the Galveston
Hmm.
area around Texas. So going down to Hotel Galvez, going down to the was
Hmm.
like almost every weekend. So Hotel Galvez is actually haunted. I've stayed there. You walk into the doors, there's a flood of emotions that come out. And even once you
Hmm.
step on their property, it does this thing. Now, I stayed
Hmm.
out on the beachfront side of Hotel Galvez, and at night, it seems to be footsteps imprinted into the grass, like they're coming back from the
Cool.
into
That's
that
cool.
what I think it was a school or something like that at a point in time. So they're a hurricane hit and they came from the beach area, something like that, and they're
Hmm.
traipsing back in schoolhouse or whatever it was at that point in time. Uh,
Hmm.
the haunting is supposedly the work of the lovely or lovelorn lady tried tragically alive. After hearing news of her fiance's death, you of ghosts to add the hotel's haunted history. Now I've never. I mean I don't get that. I don't get that sense of a
I
demonic. Yeah,
What's a ghoul? I don't. Yeah, I don't know what a
well,
ghoul is.
I compare ghouls and demons being the same thing, but I don't get
Oh,
that.
okay.
I don't get that sense of stuff like that. I get
Mm,
the flood of sad emotion whenever I go in. No, just an
mhm.
overwhelming of that. I mean, uh, have you stayed there or? Uh,
This is another one I have not stayed at yet, but it is definitely on my list. And I would not be surprised if the entire island of Galveston is haunted because of the hurricane activity and all the deaths and the flooding
oh yeah.
over the years. I look at the paranormal. I think when we figure it out, and I hope we do, it's going to come down to a yet identified type of energy. And usually it's an energy that is associated with very repetitive events or very tragic events or very stressful events, in people's personal lives. And so you look at the tragedy of these hurricanes and the tremendous amount of energy in all of that. I mean, I'm not surprised that you're picking up on overwhelming sadness and that there's going to be haunt activity with people, the footprints in the grass. All of that to me just it lines up that, these hurricanes provide this energy for these types of manifestations. We don't exactly know how it works yet, but it seems to be a pattern. And so I am not surprised that the Hotel Galvez is really,
Well, I mean,
really
any
haunted.
type of weather events where people have lost their lives, I imagine they're just not. It's just
Yeah.
not gonna go and just dissipate. Not like what you see in the Vampire Diaries.
Mhm.
Will be a
Yeah.
peak. I mean, it's not
Mhm.
like that. I mean, uh, you know, stuff like. So number three, we have uh, Cafe Dive Bar in Houston. I'm not for sure whether I said that right, but it's believed to be
Um,
the oldest bar
yeah.
in Houston. It's housed in the oldest commercial building, which opened as a bakery in 19. Season Bar was also a drugstore and a hair salon before becoming the bar in the 1960s. It maintains a haunted atmosphere lit by candles and serves hosts to the occasional seance. Bartenders have reported bottles falling and sound of children playing upstairs. Uh, some even say old manager lurks. Oh
Ooh,
yeah,
spooky.
I mean literally. I have. Here's a crazy thing. I drink at home. I don't drink around other people because
Hmm.
there's a chance I may have too much and I can't drive home, and I'm not gonna have enough for an Uber
Hmm.
back to the house. I'm not gonna
Hmm.
have an Uber back to so it's more about just drinking at home, having fun, doing a podcast. So yeah. Uh so do you go and do any of the bars and stuff like that? Any chance?
I have investigated one local bar here in Waco, and they at the time were really concerned about confidentiality, so I can't really say which bar it was, but it was a bar here in downtown Waco where very similar things, but they would see like shadows, shadow figures. They heard what sounded like a snake, a rattlesnake in one of the corners, which I thought was really unusual. Yes, glasses moving across the bar, things falling and breaking. In fact, when I was there, I got some really strange EMF readings. That's electromagnetic field readings. And the guy I was with saw a shadow person in the hallway, and so there again, I did a little bit of research, and kind of like the Hotel Galvez, this bar was really, really close to where the F5 tornado hit Waco. So there again, you had this big weather event that released a lot of energy, and there was just lots of death and tragedy. And the building that the bar was in survived, which was great because a lot of buildings didn't. And so, it just makes sense to me that you get these big major tragedies, and later on, there's haunt activity.
By the way, I just wanted to spot this out if nobody's I have one of my mods
Hmm.
at and
Oh.
and what he has done is whenever I mention I mean doing this on his own, mentioning keywords like Galveston, put Galveston, the country song, uh, on
Oh.
in the chat, and now that then now that we're talking about the in a bar in then you put Toby Keith.
Yeah, it's like
Toby
Toby
Keith, I
Keith.
love this bar.
That's awesome. Yeah, I can see it.
Ah,
Very nice. Very nice.
by the way, I
Mhm.
just wanted to say something. We do have a new sponsor. It's HelloFresh. It's for 30 days now. There is going to be a or code in the chat over here or right here. Uh, in the chat that will get you 60% off and free shipping for your first box. Go to HelloFresh and right. Oh, I'm good. The Marfa Lights. I have never heard about them. And I love
Oh.
Texas history. In fact, whenever I whenever I went and before went to the Dr. Pepper Museum, I went to the gift shop over there and got some you know reproduction of the old Texas money to give away
Cool.
and chat to. Uh, so yeah, uh, so I went over there and I love Texas history, and my whole thing was the Bonnie and Clyde car. Now, thank you for
Yeah.
the 30 bits, Trend Killer, so much. But the Bonnie and Clyde car, uh,
Mm-hmm.
definitely had my attention whenever I was young. We went to the
Mm-hmm.
Texas Ranger. I know I'm getting away from and the
Mm-hmm.
rest of the things, but we went to the Texas Ranger Museum, and literally, I mean, I could sense something bad, but like a nightmare for almost.
Hmm.
I don't know what followed me
Strange.
home, but attached to
Wow.
me, it was like a bad nightmare. Time I woke up every time, and
Oh, that's
I
not
mean,
good.
but I mean, is what it is. But it's one of those things. Still, thank you for that. Uh, it's one of those things where that just piqued my uh stuff for the paranormal. I mean, it piqued it to where hey, I want to know more about it. So
Mm-hmm.
I went over there, like, hey, look, I'll still have the car, Bonnie and Clyde car. Just want to make an
Mm-hmm.
amends with it. That way, I'm not. That way, I don't get whenever I come in the whole months of nightmares and stuff like that. And
Mm-hmm.
basically, they're like, oh, uh, for a certain amount of time, and then basically, we found out where it was. They put this car in a hotel and casino in uh in Las Vegas. Well, a little bit outside of Las Vegas. A hotel and casino. I'm just wondering when this
Wow.
or is actually gonna rob them of money and
Yeah.
claim it for Bonnie and
Yeah.
Clyde.
I always wondered what happened. Yeah, I always wondered what happened to that car. I mean, I remember the Dr. Pepper Museum had it for a really long time, and they did a bunch of remodeling up on the second floor where the car was, and yeah, it hasn't been there for years
The
and
Dr.
years.
Pe-
And so I was always
the
fascinated
Dr.
with it.
Pepper Museum also had it.
Oh yeah.
I did not know
Yeah.
about
Maybe
this. I did not know about this. I
well
only knew
maybe
about it
they
at the Texas Ranger meeting. And I was like, oh my God.
Oh.
I had nightmares for 2 months with this car. I can just imagine what
Okay.
Dr. Pepper.
Yeah, it was there for quite a while, for years and years. And then they, like I said, they remodeled and it hasn't been there for a very long time. I had no idea that it was at the Texas
Oh yeah.
Ranger Museum. And I've heard reports from workers at the Texas Ranger Museum that the museum and the gift shop especially are haunted, and I wouldn't be surprised
Now,
at all.
I going in there yesterday, I felt something like uh like far off trying to stare at.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
it didn't let its presence be known, but it was like far off and this unsettling, like somebody's watching. I
Yeah.
feel. I
Yeah, that's
mean,
creepy.
nothing else. It's just that I felt.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean that's I yeah.
Creepy. That's creepy.
So the Marfa Lights was a infamous history state of Texas, uh, Western Edge State, accounts of red, blue, and white lights, most commonly glowing orbs, in 19th century. First recorded sights of the lights was in 1883. Young Callahan was driving cattle to Casino Pass and thought it was flickering lights, night sky, maybe a patchy campfire. Now, going into like the video side of paranormal glowing orbs, it, you could see them in infrared, and
Hmm.
they'll shoot across the room. I mean, crazy. Or they'll
Hmm.
just linger and then go into a person. But
Hmm.
have they been to explain if they
With JP Morgan Wealth Plan, far from
other
goals are closer than you think, like a lakeside
different
retirement
colors,
on the early
a
side.
purple,
Start by linking all your banking, lending, and investing
bright
accounts
green one,
so you
or
never
what?
have to
Yeah.
move your money. Then set goals.
Yeah, I've seen lots of pictures and videos of different colored orbs. Um, Very few orb videos or pictures get my attention because there's just too many things that they could be, like dust or rain or fog or any number of things. But there have been some orb videos. For example, I do paranormal tours at the Dr. Pepper Museum, and we have one orb video from the back stairs that go down to the basement. And it looks like these bluish colored orbs are actually walking up the steps. And I think that that's just a really intriguing video. It's not just the typical floating orb or even shooting around orb. These things looked very deliberate. So I really wasn't sure what to make of those. Most of the time they're kind of floating or kind of shooting across the screen. And I'm like, oh, maybe something paranormal, most likely not. However, I've also talked to people that have seen orbs with their eyes, and I think that's completely different. I think that there's a much higher likelihood that if you're seeing orbs with your eyes and not through some piece of, equipment, then that's something pretty extraordinary. So I'm jury is still out for me on the whole orb phenomena. Some seem to be genuine paranormal type activity. Most of them seem to be kind of dust and water vapor.
Right. By the way, Arcade, thank you for the 71 and the 49 bit. Thank you. So the next one has always been on my list of wanting to go down to been on Battleship of Texas. Uh Warrior and the submarine. They're right by it. Can't remember the. I think it's Seawolf or something like that. That they had that.
Oh yeah, yeah, I've been there. Yeah.
I've always wanted to go on to the USS Lexington. It was. It's supposed to be. I've seen it on several ships. On ship sides and the and most whenever like the videos stuff like that, it took these guys that are like so far into the paranormal, their techs and everything else. 5 nights the Lexington, so so yeah, that's been one of my bucket list items that I wanted to do. But the thing says Texas most haunted destination gets spooky when younger than the age of 12. The younger crowd staying overnight at USS Lexington Corpus, where guests all age ghosts take part in scavenger hunts across a 100,000 square foot and 11 decks. Don't worry, they say the ghosts here are more mischievous. So they they like to play the prank. Oh wow! Thank you, Arcade, for the 500 bits. That is one entry. For the grand prize that we have, which is, by the way, Dr. Pepper glass that I bought at the museum. Dr. Pepper jelly beans at the museum, and the replica money from Texas Rangers museum. No, Clean Man, there's not a PS5 giveaway. You're gonna have to try a whole lot harder than that. The next one I've been to, and probably every Texan and probably everybody in the South has been, the Alamo. So, okay, everybody's got their own stories about the Alamo. To me, it's more despair whenever I walk into it, and stuff like that. It's despair, it's sadness. Basically, it's like get the smell of death. Have you been to the Alamo? If so,
yes, actually, these last three, finally, yes, I've been to Marfa and looked for the Marfa lights. I didn't see the Marfa lights, but looked out over the desert. Marfa is a really cool little town in far west Texas. It's a fun place to visit. And I have been to the USS Lexington, and I hope you get there. The ship is indeed, it's massive. I didn't encounter any ghostly activity there, but just for the historical relevance of it, I mean, it's an amazing, amazing ship. And finally, yes, I've been to the Alamo many times, but during the day, and I've never really felt anything, oppressive or sad. But you have to keep in mind, I'm one of those people that is just at the far end of the what I call the psi or the psychic spectrum. I have friends that are very psychically sensitive, and it sounds like you're pretty psychically sensitive as well. On one end, I'm on the exact opposite end, and I don't feel anything. So I'm really the wrong person to talk to about, hey, did you go to this haunted place? Did you feel this? Did you feel that? And I'm like, no, that's why I investigate with people who can feel those things and who can sense those things. But there again, I have no doubt that the Alamo is haunted for the very same reasons that, like the Galvez is haunted or the Lexington is haunted. There's been a lot of energy and tragedy. So I wouldn't be surprised if that energy is still hanging around and creating activity.
Well, to me, there's three different. I'd say three different spectrum of, when, like, for a person to feel haunted. I mean, you have the people that are like me, very sensitive. I can go up to a place. Then you have the ones that hear it and they're like Aggie and they're going take off.
Yeah.
And then you have the people back behind the science. They're like, okay, well, we want to take a picture. And I mean, and all three of them thrive together as long as you number two, dog lead. But
Yeah. Yeah, thankfully I don't investigate with the number two people. I mean, I have plenty of people that are, not plenty, but I investigate with a few of the people that are like in the number three category and a few that are in the number one category. And yes, having that combination of kind of more rationally minded and scientifically minded people versus the highly sensitive, kind of more metaphysical people. I mean, yeah, it makes for a great team, because each one can pick up things that the other is not picking up on. So it's really helpful.
Here's the thing about me. I'm very sensitive to paranormal, and I can almost smell what went on there. But I'm one of those people that I'm like you. I wanna take a picture of it. I wanna prove to the world, hey, look. I wanna.
Yeah, they are real.
I wanna prove
Yeah.
to you that I can catch that demon up there in the corner being a poltergeist. I want to be able, and I don't want, like, for people that would say, okay, hey, look, you just see. No, I've studied on and off for 20 something years about Ed and Lorraine Warren and exactly everything that they have in their occult. Like I told you, I've been over to Zach Began, his occult music. Whenever I was driving a truck, that was especially the little dolls that he has, and what I've heard about those dolls, that you can actually, if you at them or if things, there was a guy that 6 months uh before I went, and I did not know nothing about this. The episode out on travel, and
Mm.
uh basically I went through there. I looked at everything. He was in the middle of remodeling the house that was in Ohio, uh, for parts of it to be there because it can. And basically, guy came in and is like, "F this, F everybody. I'm not even." And
Ew.
girlfriend survived the motorcycle accident, but he, uh, yeah,
Oh dear.
was killed.
Ooh.
And it was linked. It
Oh,
was
that's
linked
bad.
back to that one call. Yeah,
Oh wow.
it
Oh, that's
is.
horrible.
So I mean, I believe in my mind and in my life that yes, it is real. I mean, there is some paranormal. Not, I haven't. Well, let's say like this. I have not found it. Vampires, wet
Oh yeah.
dogs,
Yeah.
wet dogs.
Shapeshifters. Yeah.
Uh, now, whenever I think of shapeshifters, I think of what was it? East Texas, uh, not East Texas, West Texas, on out into Mexico. There's a Navajo or Apache property land, and called Skinwalkers.
Oh, Skinwalker Ranch. Yeah, that's in northern Utah,
Utah. There we
actually.
go.
Yes.
I
Yes.
was thinking it was
Lots
closer.
of crazy reports. Yeah, well, Southwest. Yeah, lots of crazy, crazy reports of UFOs and ghosts and skinwalkers and giant wolves and yeah, there's a TV show on that now. But yeah, crazy place. It's one of my bucket list places. I would love to visit
By
Skinwalker
the way,
Ranch.
if you haven't already, there is the link to the HelloFresh stuff. Uh, Go in, get 60% off, free shipping. Just wanted to throw that out there. That's the first time I saw the link. So, yeah, that was one of those things. Whenever I think of the shapeshifter, I think of the Skinwalker, several paranormal,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
I mean, literally come back with photographs of like,
Yeah, it's crazy. Looks crazy.
and I- and another one is I haven't seen any wet dogs. Talking uh,
Yeah.
talking about, I'm throwing references out from Vampire Diaries, talking about werewolves. Uh,
Ooh.
those those being on the far spectrum. Uh,
Mhm.
those are the far spectrum of paranormal. Heard about. Well,
Mhm.
it began from a book made by Bram Stoker, Dracula. And then they all called Vlad Tepes Dracula. Could he be? Not be? Don't know.
Hard
And
to say.
when,
Hard to say.
what I was telling you before stream just happened. Clean Man
Mhm.
asked, ask the doctor to explain Trans Gamer's floating head. I told you.
Oh, I don't know.
I
I think
told you
that's
that would come up.
a great mystery. It's a great, great mystery. Nobody
Nobody
knows. Nobody
knows.
knows.
It's one of those things that will never be discovered.
Exactly.
But
Exactly.
anyway,
Yes.
the Alamo, like I said, I get the dreary feeling. I get devastation, sadness. I get some of the places. I get the feeling of anger and stuff like that because of what they was. But some people don't. I mean, like you said, you depend on the science, and exactly. I would love to get some of the pictures just made. Okay, the last one. The last one. The ghost of. I say this, but I'm not for sure how to say it right. It's Terlinga.
Terlingua.
Let you.
Terlingua. Yeah. Yeah. It's awesome. I've been to Terlingua, the ghost town of Terlingua. It's a great place.
Okay. Could you explain it? Uh,
Well, actually, it's just a little town that's right outside of the entrance to Big Bend National Park there in West Texas. It's got this really cool little historic graveyard, historic buildings. It's great for stargazing because there's just no lights out there. I went into the cemetery at night. We stayed there. We camped there for a few days and really didn't see anything or get anything paranormal, but I know that it has a reputation for being haunted. And, I wouldn't be surprised if it was. It just happened to be that when I was there, I just didn't experience anything. But it's great, especially I recommend it for people who are photographers that really like to take pictures because, I mean, just the beautiful rock formations and the night sky and the buildings and it's a really cool place. It's one of my favorite places in Texas.
okay. Let me ask you this. Uh, for people who don't, uh, uh, lightness, running water, like a certain type of rock, like limestone. Is there anything that would just make that a lot stronger?
Do you know what I think amplifies or makes paranormal activity stronger are certain people. I think we have on the academic side of things where I do my research with some of my research colleagues, we have something called there's something called haunted people syndrome. And I'm not going to get into that whole thing, but there are people that are wired up, kind of like yourself, to experience paranormal activity. And when these people go into places that are reportedly haunted, activity kicks up. And there again, we don't exactly know how that connection is made, but I think of a lot of times it depends really on who's there. And if you've got people that are very, very psychically sensitive and high in a psychological trait called transliminality, then yeah, we find that paranormal activity happens a lot more. Now, what's going on in that environment, we're still looking at that too, because obviously there's some kind of connection or interaction between these people that I call them ghost magnets, between ghost magnets and these haunted environments. So I think more than anything, it's who's there.
I mean, yeah, I mean, but I was I wasn't really thinking that there was a way that a person could practice stuff like that. I I guess for me, I'm not for sure about the area. It's about the area.
Hmm. Yeah, it's both. It's both. It's not just the person bringing ghosts along with them to the party. No, it's about these people that go into these locations that, yes, have something strange going on in the locations, something paranormal that even people like me, because I've seen a ghost, even people like me can have these experiences in these haunted locations. But if you bring, if to make it stronger or to make it more likely that there's going to be activity, then you want to bring these ghost magnets in, and they will, I don't know if they're drawing out the activity or they're altering the environment with their presence in some way, because there's something definitely in the environment as well. And so it's really really interesting. But yeah, it kind of depends on, at least in my experience and in our research, that's kind of what we're seeing.
All right. Well, you have questions. Of course, I think the
Okay.
viewers will have questions. How long have you been a doctor?
I got my doctorate, my PhD in educational psychology in 2006. So let's see, 14, 17 years I've been a doctor.
Okay, well, you answered. So what made you? Okay, you answered this ahead of schedule, but uh, for the audience, uh, what made you pick the paranormal career?
Yeah, I talked about this a little earlier. It's something I've always been interested in. And then, fast forward to like the Ghostbusters and ghost hunting shows and everything. And that got me interested all over again as an adult because it looked like there was some science behind this. And then as I did more research, I found the field of parapsychology, which is where, ghosts and hauntings have been scientifically studied for over 150 years. I mean, there's a whole bunch of scientific literature on this. And that I found even more fascinating. And so I look at it, and the reason why it fascinates me so much is it's the only place where the big questions that everybody has are being tackled. Do we survive death? Well, is there life after death? What happens to our bodies and our if we have a soul, where does it go? Are there other spiritual beings? Are there angels? Are there demons? All of these big universal questions that mainstream science just kind of pushes aside and said, "Oh, that's a bunch of nonsense," or that belongs in religion. It's not scientifically studyable. And it's like, no, 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 no. These are the questions. And I mean, if we can even start to be able to answer some of these questions scientifically, I mean, wow, that's a game changer for everybody. I mean, I can't think of anything more exciting to study than this. So yeah, I love it.
Okay, so for someone that doesn't know, what are the types of? And
Okay, yeah,
go
well,
ahead. Go
oh,
ahead.
I'm sorry, go ahead. Yeah, no, that's okay. We have three kind of general working categories. And what we've got intelligent or interactive haunts. We have residual haunts, and we have poltergeist activity. And so interactive intelligent haunts are the ones that you see in the movies. The ghost comes out and scares the people and or talks to the people, or they interact with the living. There seems to be consciousness there, and will, volition. Residual activity, that's a lot more common. Those are the phantom footsteps, or the phantom smells. I get a lot of reports of, like, oh, cigar smells or perfume smells. Just kind of these phantom things that repeat over and over again. Like the battlefield at Gettysburg, big place for residual haunt activity. People will hear soldiers screaming and yelling. They'll hear cannon fire, gunshots. So just kind of these residual things. Poltergeist activity is a little more tricky, because it can be caused by people, but it can also be caused by things going on in the environment, kind of back to that haunted people syndrome thing again. We have a little bit of a tough time parsing it out, because it is also seen in those intelligent haunts, with the interactive ghosts. There could be poltergeist activity. There could be things moving around. So it's a little more tricky, but those are just kind of the three general categories that we kind of put things in. And I will say a lot of haunted places have all three going on, or or even just one experience. It can be all three things going on at the same time. You can have a ghost and some things moving around, and you can be hearing some phantom footsteps. So it's still kind of unclear as to what these categories are. So, but that's kind of in general.
So, lost my place. Uh, so on the residual type, could I got it? Well, anyway, what are some of the most haunted places you've?
I think probably the two most haunted places I've investigated here in Texas, is the Palace Theater in Marlin, Texas. And I hope you don't mind, but I'm going to make a little plug here. We do Paranormal University at the Palace Theater in Marlin, that's open to the public. We do this like 2 or 3 times a year, where we invite the public in. There's limited amount of space to ghost hunt the theater, which is very active. Our next one is coming up on April 8th. So the Palace Theater is the only place where I've seen a full-bodied apparition in the basement. And there's been lots of activity over the years there. And the other place is Haunted Hill House in Mineral Wells, another really, really paranormally active place. And I've investigated there a couple times. So really, really fun places to investigate.
So on this Paranormal University, what do you cover beforehand, or what do you? Is it like EMF? Go find a ghost.
It kind of, I mean, what it is we have people come in, and we do a really quick introduction, and just, demonstrate all of our tools and all of our, cameras and EMF readers and everything. And we tell them how they're used. We also have EMF meters that they can use as well. And, other things, like dowsing rods and spirit boxes and things. And so we'll do like dowsing rod demonstrations and sessions, spirit box sessions, and then we have the people just break into groups, and the theater is huge, And so we just kind of rotate groups to investigate different parts of the theater for the evening. And then at the end, we all come back and share what we
Oh,
found.
nice.
And so it's always a lot of
Nice.
fun. Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Dowsing rods got really good steady hands. Keep them out in front of you. That's the way to go. For me, I like our little REM pod.
REM pods are great. Yeah. That is, I have a lot of equipment, but I do not have a REM pod. And yes, dowsing rods. I suck at dowsing rods.
You ain't the only one there.
And I tell people,
You ain't the only one.
yeah,
It's like
yeah. And so,
it's like I can hold them out there for a little bit, but then my arms get. I'm like,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So
Mm.
okay, on what you investigate versus the whole state of Texas. But what is the most haunted? Yes.
In the whole state?
What would you consider the most
Okay.
haunted?
Oh, wow, that's a tough one. I'm leaning towards Jefferson, Texas. The whole town of Jefferson. That's a creepy, weird little town. I love it. It's a great place. They have paranormal conventions there, but yeah, a lot of the houses there have paranormal activity. There's also Bigfoot activity in the area, which is kind of interesting. And I'm leaning towards Jefferson probably being one of the most haunted places
What
in
about in the
Texas.
United States? Let's spread it just
Uh,
to the United States. And then we're gonna go to the world.
We're gonna go to the world. I would say, at least in my opinion, probably one of the most haunted places in the United States is New Orleans. And I mean, I love going to New Orleans. It's a great place. Their cemeteries are amazing. Also in Louisiana is the Myrtles Plantation, which has a reputation for being extremely haunted. One of my fellow investigators has been to the Myrtles and had some interesting experiences there. And so yeah, I would say definitely New Orleans would take the top spot for one of the most haunted
And
places
for
in
the
the US.
Myrtles Plantation, there's been I don't, well, I call it a, not a full body apparition, but whenever I think of body apparition, but you could tell,
Mm.
period, clothing, face, everything. There's been photographs all over.
Hmm.
I mean, I think there was one in the history books whenever I was growing up of the Myrtles plantation of because plantation they had slaves, and one of the slaves and younger child right there, and you would think that it was like black and white photograph of the
Hmm.
person, of the slave, and of the child. How that's how
Hmm.
uh like the clothing and everything else look.
Yeah, yeah. It's one, like I said, it's one of my bucket list places. I would love to go there. I still plan on going there, but yeah, one of the guys that I investigate with, he is he is a straight up psychic, and is great to have on investigations. But he went to the Myrtles and yeah, got touched. His feet were like ice cold. They stayed in the slave shack. They heard, things like beating on the walls around them. And so really, really crazy stuff. And so yeah, I really want to go
That's
there.
definitely one of my places. What about the world? been talking to U.S. now. What is
The world, that's that, I'm not a world traveler, but I do know a couple of places that I would really like to go to that have reputations for being very haunted. And that is, one is the Island of the Dolls in Mexico, where there's a legend where a hermit lived there, and these little girls that supposedly drowned, were haunting him and asking him for dolls. And he kept getting dolls and just putting them all through the forest. And I mean, it's just this really creepy forest that's filled with these dolls that are, and pieces of dolls that are like nailed to the trees and stuff. And they say that the dolls will turn their heads and look at you, and their apparitions being seen there. So to me, that sounds like a really kind of creepy, cool place. And the other one is Pripyat, which is in northern Ukraine. And this is where the Chernobyl disaster happened. And the town of Pripyat was right next to it. And so, of course, they're just now allowing some people to come in because the radioactivity has died down just enough. And I think you can go in there and spend maybe 10 minutes, 15 minutes, before you get cooked. But it of course has a reputation
or
for
have the
being
third
very haunted
hand
as
come
well.
right
And
out
there's
your chest and be like this?
yeah,
Be,
yeah,
be like
exactly.
be like on Fallout 4, if you're a video game
Yeah.
person. So
Yeah.
I, definitely for me, world, there's a place I really don't want to name its name, but let's say it like the take your own life for in
Oh
Japan.
yeah, that is
In
tragic.
Japan.
Yes, yes,
And
yeah.
it goes by a whole different name, but let's just
Hmm.
let's just say it like that. Or like
Yeah,
Twitch and YouTube and all of that because I don't want to get. But I
yeah,
mean that
yeah.
that one place, and there's also another place. Uh, mine's always been castles, and
Oh, I'd love to see
I brought
castles. Yeah.
a name into it, Vlad Tempest, Vlad the Impaler.
Mm.
So I'm myself go to where it all began, Transylvania.
Mm. Hmm. Oh, I'd love to go to Transylvania. Definitely. That would be a
And
great
not
place to
even,
go.
I want to say, not even 200 miles away from it, there's a place called Devil's Gate.
Oh,
And
okay.
supposedly, this whole forest haunted. You get into the middle of this so-called forest, and it's straight grassland. And
Oh, wow.
yeah, so
Well, that
that's
sounds really
that's
interesting.
like I mean, whenever I saw that, I was like, I got to go. And like I said,
Yeah.
I can't even make it down to Lexington. But I can't go
Maybe
someday.
someday.
Someday I need to get Ninja
Mhm.
Rich.
There you go.
So okay, so we covered Texas, best world. What are some haunted?
Oh gosh. Well, let me see. We've got the Dr. Pepper Museum is haunted, the Hippodrome, the Alico Building, the courthouse, East Terrace House. That's one of the historical homes. Um, Cameron Park, the Cameron Park Zoo, and I think that pretty much
I heard something about the
covers it.
castle.
Oh, Cottonland Castle.
I'm not for sure. They just called it the
Yeah,
castle. Waco.
Okay. Oh, like Witch's
No,
Castle?
not Witch's Castle.
Not Witch's Castle. Yeah, the castle is probably Cottonland Castle, and it was recently bought by Chip and Joanna Gaines and remodeled. And so it's now a big tourist attraction. I don't know if it was ever haunted. It's very beautiful.
I think I've
But yeah,
I
that's
think
all
I've
I know.
drove right beside it. I I didn't get
Hmm.
no feelings from it, but I was in a car. But people,
Yeah.
people was taking stuff like that news out there. I mean, everything. So yeah,
Hmm.
I kept on hearing about the castle stuff like that, and then I done a lot of research or what was called the witch.
Oh, mm-hmm.
I'm not for sure whether you got
Mm-hmm.
this. I haven't been up there yet, or
Hmm.
castle. Turn part.
It's yeah, it's just outside of the park on I think it's Adelaide or Adeline Lane, and it's um basically it's fenced off right now, but you can get there through the park. And I mean, yeah, you see the foundation of what used to be like a little house, and of course there's a big legend that this crazy witchy woman was, capturing children and sacrificing them, and and there's all kinds of paranormal activity up there. And I mean, I haven't experienced anything paranormal up there. I do know that there was a home up there at one time, and there was a whole community of people. It was called the Cedar Breaks. There was a prostitute that ran a a brothel out in that area. There was a cemetery up there. So lots of stuff happened in that particular area. But I did not get any kind of weird vibes or feelings from the foundation of what they thought was like the witch's castle house. But who knows? I mean, it could be haunted. The rest of the park
Well,
is
from
haunted.
what I understood, they uh guy who bought uh where the witch's castle was basically riding trail bikes and stuff like that.
Yes.
So
Yes.
it was basically for that, and they had uh their paranormal there, and they said, so I mean, for me, I
Yeah.
I I don't know, but even
Hmm.
even the uh as a woman that was living, let's say in the 60s, was waiting on her son, something a story that went that was uh the Air Force. That's what I heard.
Hmm.
And uh
Hmm.
basically that's where I got. I mean, I've watched Channel 6's news reports, 10's
With JP Morgan Wealth Plan, faraway goals are closer than you think. Like a lakeside.
Yeah, I think that one, honestly, I think it's a lot of urban
yeah,
legend. I
I
really do.
think so too.
Yeah, so many stories. Yeah, but it's still a cool
Oh, I'm,
place. I mean, it's still worth going out there and looking around.
yeah.
Farther than
Uh
reach or bring them
Mhm.
free and plan
okay, we was talking about equipment. What is your favorite piece of
investment
equipment?
Oh, that's easy. My EMF meter. Um, for those that don't know, my EMF meters are electromagnetic field readers. And what they do is they're designed to detect, electromagnetic fields. So, people have used them to check for faulty wiring in their houses, or, they pick up on our, cell phones and Apple Watches and the whole deal. Well, what they're also used for in paranormal research is that if you take an EMF reader into a haunted location and you can rule out natural electrical sources and you still are getting kind of erratic readings that a lot of times will like follow you around, like something's following you around, um, it is most likely paranormal. So we're finding that these electromagnetic fields and paranormal activity kind of go hand in hand. So I carry my EMF reader around with me like a security blanket at every investigation. I mean, I love my EMF reader. By far my favorite piece of equipment.
Arcade Revolution asks, how far does a EMF reader have to from something detected?
Usually it's about 10 feet. It will detect things within about 10 feet of you. Just kind of a general rule of thumb.
Okay. So, uh, let's see. So besides ghosts, uh, what other paranormal have you encountered?
um, I really haven't encountered anything. I mean, I've heard, the residual kind of noises. I've seen an apparition, but I haven't really encountered anything other than ghostly activity. I've never seen like a Bigfoot. I've never seen like a flying saucer, or the what are they called now? Unidentified aerial phenomenon, UAPs. Or shapeshifters or anything like that. It's just probably because I don't put myself in those situations where there's like the UFO hotspots or the Bigfoot hotspots. I just am always walking around in haunted houses. So
I mean,
yeah, pretty much
I mean,
I'll
I
have
had
seen
asked that
ghosts.
for UFO. I haven't seen
Hmm.
that. You know, who knows? Later on, I may.
Yeah, never know.
Uh, so I um. Hey, we was talking about like um basically the science. What does science say about craft, bewitchment, satanic eye, paranormal? What does science say?
That it's a bunch of nonsense and that it shouldn't, it's dismissed. It's not scientifically studied. I mean, those are all things that are part of the occult. And it's something that my colleagues and I are getting ready to start studying is occultists because we think that there again there's this whole place that needs to be tapped for scientific study, and that is these very things, the evil eye or the witchcraft or whatever it is, all of these occultic type things that have been around for centuries. But yeah, as of yet, mainstream science just they ignore it. They just say that's a bunch of that belongs in the religion department or the anthropology department. That has no place in rigorous scientific
So
study.
they want to put witchcraft, religion.
Yeah. Yeah, and so, but yeah, just religious beliefs yeah, it's just religious beliefs in general. It's kind of, it is technically a type of religious belief. So they would put it in
Oh,
there.
so I'm going over these questions. Like I told you, they're gonna be like mixed up and everything. I didn't. I just wrote them down and then put the number.
That's okay.
Uh
That's okay.
so let's see. Uh, in the world, we know that there are demons, and to be put out there like in every place. How many times have you run across them?
Never. And I hope to never run into any kind of demonic type activity. Now, this is a big, you know, um, debate here again in the scientific community. They're going to relegate demons and angels to religion again. They're going to say these things don't exist. I am a Christian, so I believe that other spiritual beings exist. I believe that demons exist. I believe that angels exist. Um, I think that they are both very powerful, and they are something that you should not mess with, and especially you should not provoke. I cringe every time I see paranormal investigators go into a place and you say, "Show yourself, demon! Get out here, you blankety blank blank," and all this, and I'm like, you don't know what you're dealing with. You're coming in being very arrogant and thinking that you can control this situation. And if you do have a demonic encounter with this like very powerful spiritual being, to me it's kind of like holding a tiger by the tail. I mean, I would never ever want to run into a demon. Um, I haven't yet, and I hope I never do. It's just something that I just really don't want any part of.
Right. Well, there's, I mean, there's some stuff out there, and like I said, I'm a big, I guess you would call it a big fan of Ed and Lorraine Warren. And
Mm-hmm.
whenever I see some of the stuff that they've done, it's always been okay. The bed's twisting and all sorts of directions upstairs, and uh,
Mm-hmm.
Ed's playing Elvis. So, in real life, Ed and Lorraine Warren said uh, anything that has locked itself in an object should not be gotten rid of. For example, the Annabelle doll.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so should what is your opinion on, let's say, destroying that object? Let's say, let's say later on, let's say Tony Shapiro, that's over Ed and Lorraine's place, passes,
Mm-hmm.
and somebody comes in, bulldoze, knocks over the case, Annabelle's free. So,
Yeah.
I mean, what is your belief on what Ed and Lorraine would about anything that locks its object should be destroyed or gotten rid of?
Yeah, I had never heard of that before until until I read your questions. But yes, there are attachments to objects, and so that's definitely true. Um, but I also look at, well, haunted houses or haunted buildings are just big objects. And so there are things attached to them as well. And I know that there have been haunted places that have been burned down or destroyed. And, where does that energy go? I don't know. I would say the same thing about the objects. Okay, if Annabelle the doll is, burned in a fire, where does that energy go? Does it dissipate? Does it just kind of, get diluted in the environment? Or does it, is it a spirit that flies into something else? That's a good question. I'm really not sure. I don't know.
Okay. So we was all I know this is like so far just going over and over in different directions. I should have made sure that every one of these lined up, but I didn't. So because I've been working at Amazon. Sorry. Thanks Amazon. Uh
Yeah, it's all your fault.
Trend Killer Syndicate says, has she played some of the new ghost hunting games at all?
I am not a gamer. Sorry, guys. I just don't do the gaming
Well,
thing.
there's one called Mortuaries Assistant. There's called Madison. There's one called Phasmophobia that deals with ghost hunting. Madison hunting, but Mortuaries Assistant, you're right there. You're dissecting the
That's
person
cool.
uh and literally haunting. I mean,
Oh,
I've
I
watched
imagine.
it being played. I was like jumping out of my skin. So,
Yeah.
uh, so okay. So, two-part question. What makes something paranormal? I know we've been over it a little bit, but what makes something paranormal?
That probably the most general definition I can give of that because of the name paranormal, which is kind of like beside normal, is something that we can't currently study scientifically, or at least very well. I mean, it's something out of what we see as the normal or the ordinary. It's something that is yet to be explained. We just don't quite have the tools yet to explain what it
And
is.
being a psychologist, uh,
Yeah, educational psychology is, yeah, and oh, I'm also a parapsychologist. Yes.
what makes sense?
Ah,
That's a question for
that's a
me.
very
I
good.
mean, I'm one of those.
No, no, this is a great question. I love this question, and we are figuring that out. Um, Basically, there are people that have psychic abilities, and these are there's tons of scientific study on these, and the psychic abilities are ESP, precognition, telepathy, clairvoyance, all of these things, telekinesis, being able to move things with your mind. So there are some people that are just wired up for this. Their minds are just they do these things. You have these capabilities. So you've got somebody that has psychic capabilities, and you combine that with their belief in the paranormal. For some reason, belief tends to play a role. And so if you believe that these things are true, that tends to be a big factor. And finally, people that are high in what we call transliminality. And what that means is we've got mental barriers between like our conscious mind, or gates. They're more like gates that open and close. And between our conscious mind and our subconscious mind and our unconscious mind. And people who are high in this what we call transliminality, their gates don't shut as well as other people's gates. So there's a lot more flow between the unconscious mind, the subconscious mind, and the conscious mind in people high in transliminality. So you get this trifecta. You get the person with the psychic abilities who believes in the paranormal that is high in transliminality, and that makes people very, very likely to be what I call those ghost magnets. The people that are very highly sensitive to paranormal activity.
So Is it dangerous to experience paranormal activity?
In general, I would say no. I have never been in a situation where I've felt in danger or have been harmed. However, I do know that there are people that have been in paranormal places that have gotten scratched or pushed, um, you know, or kind of bruised. So I think there are things that can happen. One of our cases that we wrote a paper on was the South Shields poltergeist case in Britain, and this was a couple of years ago. And the poltergeist would throw butcher knives at the family, so it can be dangerous, yeah, but I think that's pretty rare.
Now, you mentioned, and my mind went
Mhm.
uh, Jacob's ladder here.
Oh yeah, yeah, the
Yeah,
grabbing
the
ghost.
grabbing
Yeah.
ghost. You
Mhm.
realize there's like over 100 trying to get them to. I mean, bringing women along because I
Mhm.
want to say that at RogueCon that
Mhm.
primarily grabs women.
Yes.
So they've been bringing
Yeah.
women along and stuff like that, and they'll, uh, they'll try to get this ghost grab, and most of the
Mhm.
time it fails.
Yeah, but I'm hearing lots of reports, even to this day, it's been going on since the 1980s, about people going up and down Jacob's ladder that are getting, poked and pinched and touched. And so, that's actually pretty common in places that have paranormal activity. For example, like I said earlier, I do tours, paranormal tours at the Dr. Pepper Museum. And recently, within the last couple of tours, we have had people come through the tour, and one lady got grabbed on the ankle, another lady got grabbed on the thigh, and I was standing there behind the tour group, and something poked me in the butt. So we've got a groping ghost at the Dr. Pepper Museum right
Uh,
now, and it's kind of a new thing, but I'm sure everybody's kind of taking it in stride. Nobody's getting hurt or anything. But yeah, this type of activity happens
Speaking
definitely.
of the Dr. Pepper Museum, I talked to Liz, and I got the.
Mm.
I'm very psyched about that because I want to do one just through the Dr. Pepper and
Hmm.
videoing it, during the day. And I want to take a tour.
Hmm.
I want to go catch something.
Well, you never know. I've been taking, because I also teach paranormal investigating classes at MCC, our local community college, and I've been taking students to investigate the Dr. Pepper Museum since 2016. And I mean, some of the things that people have witnessed there are shadow people. That seems to be a pretty big one. My equipment has been kind of messed with. My camera's turned off. Um, Phantom noises like the screen door closing. Of course, there's kind of a malevolent presence in the basement near one of the crawl spaces. And so,
Which
yeah,
basement was
there
that?
is stuff that at the Dr. Pepper
Right.
Museum.
I was talking about like it over at the soda part down there, or is it like
Oh,
at the?
oh yeah, yeah.
Is it at the other part of the museum where the top is?
No, no, it is, yeah, you know where the soda fountain is. Um, the basement is off limits to the public, and it's over there. You have to go through the offices by the soda fountain, and you get to go down into the basement. Now, on the paranormal tours, we take guests down to the basement, but that's the only tour that is allowed access to the basement.
Huh. Uh, what about the Lady Black
Oh,
at
at the
the
Dr.
Dr.
Pepper
Pepper?
Museum? Yes, yes, yes. There was, yeah, that is one of the full body apparitions that's been seen there in the basement. And she was dressed in a black Victorian dress and looked like an actual person. In fact, one of the workers saw her and talked to somebody else that was working there and said, "Hey, I did not know that we had historical reenactors at the museum." And they said, "We don't." And she's like, "Well, I just saw a lady wearing a black Victorian style dress in the basement." And they're like, "Well, no, there's nobody like that here." So we're, it was a ghost. So yeah, so yes, we have a ghost in the
So,
basement.
according to Liz, she's only been once, or is it?
As far as I know, she's only been seen once.
So, comparing to traditional science, uh, psychology is a possibility.
Well, it was accepted for a while. The Duke University Parapsychology Lab back in the 30s was a very well-known spot for paranormal research, as well as Princeton has done paranormal or parapsychological research, Stanford. So there have been some big universities that have studied these, especially the psychic abilities, like ESP or clairvoyance. Our government did a Project Stargate, as well. And so this was all kind of a happening between, I'd say, probably the 30s to the 60s, 70s, and then it just kind of fell out of favor. And so really all that's left here in the United States is the Rhine Research Center, which used to be the Duke Parapsychology Lab, but it's very small now. But it still conducts scientific research in the field of parapsychology, but that's it. I occasionally have people come up to me and say, how do you get a degree in parapsychology? Where do you go to school to become a parapsychologist? And I'm like, we don't have any of that anymore. We used to at one point, and hopefully we will again, but there's nothing like that here in the United States.
Well, I mean, it's treated more like a hobby than it is like ghost hunting.
Yes,
It's treated more like a hobby instead
yes,
of like an act.
yes,
Now,
very much so.
being an investigator, paranormal, what would top five like?
I
Okay,
have those written down.
like for the audience. Uh,
Okay. Yes, kind of my top 5 places to investigate. I would love to go to Waverly Hills Sanatorium in Louisville, Kentucky. I would love to go there. I would love to go to Salem, Massachusetts, because of the Salem witch trials. There's supposed to be a lot of haunt activity there. I would love to go to Eastern State Penitentiary. That's another spot I'd love to go to. Of course, the Myrtles Plantation, which we just talked about. And I would love to see St. Augustine's Lighthouse in Florida. So those are the biggies on my list that I'd really like to
I agree with the
investigate.
sanatorium at Eastern State Penitentiary.
Eastern
Yeah,
State Penitentiary, yeah.
see, I used to be a TDA office. I love seeing those. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so something like that would be fine. I would those two. I would love to go see, like I was saying, Pennsylvania uh, castle that
Oh yeah.
castle that that tip. Uh, I
Yeah.
would love to go see a couple other. That is just
Yeah.
awesome.
So many.
Okay, so where can we
Yeah.
find you? Out yourself out.
That's easy. Just go to my website. It's Waco Ghosts, all one word, wacoghosts.com, and you'll find everything there.
Okay, so what do you have coming up besides a university? Arlen?
Yeah, we've got on April 8th, we have the Paranormal University at the Palace Theater in Marlin, Texas. Starting at the end of March, my next paranormal investigating class starts at MCC, the community college, and it runs for 6 weeks, and where we'll learn, techniques for ghost hunting and go to some haunted places around Waco. Um, Starting in March, the Dr. Pepper Museum is going to be doing their paranormal tours every week. So on Saturday nights, starting at 7, they go from 7 to 9. So that's something that I'm involved in as well as through Brazos Tours. We have downtown haunted walking tour, and I run those. And those are every weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday nights. So got lots going on.
Exactly. Hey, Dr. Little, I want to say thank you from everybody here at Transgamer Live, which is me, mods, my admin, stuff like that. Thank you so much for being here. Awesome. Another streamer. Okay.
All right, thank you.
All right. Hey guys, thank you for coming in. Thank you for doing what you do. Thank you for everything that you've done in the past and into. I love y'all just like I love my own family. Well, that's because y'all are my family. Anyway, I am going to look for somebody who on, and we over there. Vegan's on, and Bougie's on. Tell you what. Let's send you over to Retro Game Arcade. Right? Please stay for the raid, and I will we'll send you over there. All right. Like I said, thank y'all for coming in. I will see y'all. Just I I'll see y'all on the next stream, which will be Thursday night. It will be Eye on Life. See you later.